Hi, this is Gary and welcome to this week's video. Today we're going to be taking a look at another two fountain pens. The first one is this. This is the Noodler Charlie pen. This pen was a massive cost. It was a whole $0 as it came as a gift with a bottle of Noodlers Heart of Darkness ink. The other pen is this. This is from Wingsun. It's the model 601 and it cost me 27 Australian dollars. Join me now down on the mat and we'll compare these two. See what I like about them, see what I don't, and then we'll give them some ratings. So we're going to start with the Noodler Charlie pen. Here we have it. This pen, I cannot stress this enough, it was free. It cost me nothing. It came with a bottle of Noodler's Heart of Darkness ink, and it was a nice little surprise that was in the bottle. If we take a quick look at it, you know, we've got that standard nib there. It's not the most exciting nib. It writes. What do we buy our fountain pens for? We buy them to write with. So the fact it writes, well, that's a big plus already. This nib unit, that will unscrew. And there we've got the eyedropper where we can put the ink in. I'll just screw that back on. Pop on the cap. And we'll do a little walkthrough. So at the top of the pen, we've got this black plastic cap here. I will be honest, this comes unscrewed very, very easily. And one of my biggest issues with this pen, I'm forever having to tighten this up. We've then got a nice, really flexible silver looking clip. And on there, we've got Noodlers. So we know who it's come from. I love the colouring on this cap. Now I like green anyway, so this is really nice. And the green and the black, well, it just makes that nice little look in for it. Little silver cap. Then as I say, we come into this solid plastic body, and there you can see we've got the word Charlie. And we come then to the top, again, just a sealed top. A really nice pen. And as I said, it was free. You cannot argue with free. We'll have a look at the next pen, which is from Wingsun. This is the Wingsun 601. This pen, it cost me 27 Australian dollars. So definitely it's a lot more than that free Noodlers pen. If we look at this one, we've got a nice little whitey coloured top here. Coming down to a clip. The clip to me, it's so stiff, it's virtually unusable. I even had problems when I was trying to put this into my shirt pocket. So we've got a silvered cap. Coming down here, so here we've got 601, made in China, and then there's some Chinese characters just before the 601. We then come into this burgundy coloured body, really like the colour of this, and then we've got a rounded end here. Now, one of the things which you really struggle with, and it's even to my eyes with my glasses on, it's really hard to see. Just here, you can see there's actually a line. And what it is, it's where the cap meets with the body. Because if I unscrew the cap, we've got this little, like a piston knob which goes up and down. And this is how you load ink into the pen. So you submerge your nib into the ink. So you press down on this. I did it about 4 times to give me enough ink for what I want. And then you screw that cap back on. And it's virtually invisible. So it really looks nice. How do you know the ink's in it? You've got a little ink window here. Very hard to see sometimes. I find I have to hold it up to the light to see if there's anything in there, but it's enough to give you that indication. And we come on down to the nib. So the nib is a hooded nib. It's the only hooded nib pen I've got, and one of the things I'm finding with it is getting used to getting the angle right when I'm writing. So quite often, if the angle isn't just right, it just seems to be scratchy. Yes, there is still ink coming out, but not as nice as I would like to see it. So let's fetch in the rule and let's get some measurements. So we'll start off with that Noodler pen. So with the cap on, it's 13.1 centimetres. Uncapped, it comes in at 11.6 centimetres. Posted, it posts really nicely. And posted, we come in at 14.1 centimetres. So really small. It's the smallest pen I've got. You cannot tell when you're writing with it. As I've said before, my preference is not to have pens posted. But with this one, you know, I find I've got to, just to make sure there's enough length so it's not wobbling all over. But it's a light pen, so you can get away with that. If we look at our widths with the cap, well, that comes in at 1.15 centimetres. And the body here, that comes in at 0.93 centimetres. So again, very thin. The section goes from 0.82 up to 0.89, so not really much of a change in the section either. Looking at the section, you know, we don't have that step up, which is what I see in a lot of other pens, so that's quite nice. The capping mechanism, this is a twist lock, so we go half, 1, 1.5, 1 3/4, 2 turns to come off. So I personally like that. I don't mind 2 turns. Any more than that usually seems excessive. So yep, quite happy with that. With that Winsung 601, so let's fetch that one in. So lengthwise, well, capped, it comes in at 13.8 centimetres. Uncapped, it comes in at 12.8 centimetres. Posted, again, posts rather nicely, and posted comes in at 15.3 centimetres. So again, longer than that Charlie, but not as long as some of my other pens. Our widths, well, the cap itself, that comes in at 1.16 centimetres, and it's virtually the same for the body, so it's a standard width all the way through, and that comes in at 1.16 centimetres as well. Here though, with the section, well, that goes from 0.8 centimetres right down here near the bottom up to 1.17 centimetres, which is where we've got this little clip. The capping mechanism, well, it's just pull on and pull off. There's no screwing involved. Personally, I don't like that. I like to be able to screw the caps on so I know they're securely on. Now let's do some weights. So let's fetch in the trusty scales. So we'll start with the Noodler. The Noodler, 11 grams. That's with ink in it. I've got some caps that are heavier than that. The cap, well, here you can actually see there the issue I've had about that coming loose. Anyway, the cap, 4 grams. So really is a light pen. The Winsung 601, 19 grams. And the cap, 6 grams. So nice steady weight there on that one. You know, 20 grams I think is about right. So time now for a writing sample. So I'll fetch in my notebook. The notebook is by Oxford and it's using the optic white paper. So we're going to start with the Noodler. So we've got Noodler Charlie. It's so light to write with, it's fairly awkward to be honest. Now, I'm going to say it's a fine nib. As I say, it doesn't actually stay anywhere, so I'm going to stick with it being fine. The ink, again from Noodler, and it's Heart of Darkness. Now, I don't find black inks overly exciting, but everyone should have one, and this is mine. I've got this, and then I've got a little bit of a Van Diemen ink left called Devil's Black. But once that's gone, I'm going to be sticking with the Heart of Darkness. And I did buy a large bottle of it, so it's going to be around for quite a while. Let's check wetness. So we're going to start straight away. Not an overly wet ink. Now I'm going to leave it for 5 seconds. And it's nearly dry then. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. 30 seconds. Then finally, we'll leave it for 1 minute. And after a minute, there's a little bit of smudging still, but more or less dry. The next pen is the Wing Sung 601. So as you can see, we've got a little bit of skipping here. Now that could be down to how I've got the nib, but also this pen is nearly dry now. Again, I think it's a fine nib. The ink we've got here is from Pilot. It's an Iroshizuku Yama-Budo. Now that I've got the nib in the better position, you can see it's writing better. So we'll go again. I can now try and write that Wing Sung again. We're still getting a little bit of skipping here, but as I say, it could be down to the fact that the pen is nearly empty. Up till now, it's written really well. Let's look at our wetness. So immediately, it doesn't seem to be as wet as the Charlie pen. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. So we were virtually dry there, and here, after 20 seconds, we are dry. So it seems to be a faster drying ink than was seen with the Heart of Darkness. So I'm not going to go any further with that because it's already dry. So we'll move now into the second part of the writing sample. Let me just reposition the paper. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the mic as close as I can to the paper, and then going to write the same sentence with each pen so that you can hear them and hopefully hear the difference. So that was the Charlie pen. To me, it writes really, really nicely. So now let's try that same sentence, but with the Wing Sung. So there you can see it wrote as I've been seeing it all week when I've been using this. What I think the difference is for that sentence, well, I've got the nib in the right position. This is how I struggle with this particular pen. So let's clear this off and fetch both pens back in. So what do I think of these pens? Starting with the Charlie. Well, what can I say about it? I've said it I don't know how many times. It was free. It writes nicely, as we saw with the writing sample. It looks like a bit like it's a fine nib. Don't like it, it's too light. So I do find the pen moves around a lot because of that lightness. So when I'm writing, and I do feel it makes my writing look a bit more scruffier than it does with some of my nicer pens. It looks all right. It looks cheap. It was cheap. If I had to give that score then, so what I'm going to say for pen looks for this, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. Come to the Wing Sung 601. Love the way this looks. And yes, I know it's a virtual copy of an older pen, but it still looks nice. I like this hooded nib. I just need to get used to using it. I like the ink window. It's not as full on as some of the transparent demonstrators, but it's enough that you can see if there's ink in there. For pen looks then, out of 10, well, I'm actually going to give this a 9. It looks so nice to me. It's really classic. You know, it's something that you're glad for people to see. Writing experience with the Noodler, it's just so light. You know, and I do find that impacts my writing, and it has to impact the score. So for writing experience, I really can only give this a 7 out of 10. With the 601, when you get the nib right, it writes beautifully. I can use this pen and write pages, and I have used this pen over the last couple of weeks and wrote pages. Last week I took it down to my local coffee shop when I was doing my note taking, and I must have taken about 10 pages of writing and had not a single problem. So it's not that it's a bad writer, it's just you've got to get it in the right position. But it still needs to impact the score. So really all I can do is give this is an 8 out of 10. Ink flow. So again, coming back to the Noodler, the ink flow is nice. You know, it writes well. It's not overly wet. It's not overly dry. This one, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. And to be honest, when you get it writing, you can say the same for the 601. You know, when we saw in the sentence that I wrote, it's a beautiful flow. It glides across the paper. It's not overly loud. So again, I'm going to give this one 8 out of 10. Value for money. Well, the Noodler, there is only one score I can give this. It's 10 out of 10. When something's free and it works, how can it be anything other than a 10 out of 10? Value for money for this, as I said, it was 27 Aussie dollars. Not the most expensive pen I've got, not the cheapest pen I've got. It writes nicely, it's comfortable. So value for money for this one, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. So when we top this all up, that means the Noodler Charlie pen, that comes up with a score of 8.25. The Wing Sun 601, also 8.25. So these are nice pens, I like them both. You know, it mainly sits on my desk. I don't really use black ink when I'm doing my daily writing. So it sits here and I use it for little notes that I want to jot myself. The 601, that's been in my everyday carry pack for the last month. So that's been used at least once, if not 2 days a week. Really enjoy using it. It writes nicely. That ink window, once you get used to seeing where the ink is really nice. One downside I would say here, this up here where we've got the blind cap, it's hard to see. When I first got the pen, I was struggling to work out how to fill it. I ended up having to go onto YouTube to find someone else who had done it. That's my only really negative thing about this. But I can understand why it's done that way because it doesn't detract from the looks of the pen. So yeah, overall, 2 really nice pens. Highly recommend these to anybody. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. Do you have either of these pens? What are your thoughts on them? Why not drop them below and let's kickstart the conversation. If you've liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. The more people that like and comment on the video, the more it helps the YouTube algorithm to move my content up towards the top of the search results. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.